the creators of Little Nightmares just released their darkest game yet. On launch day, it got reviewed bomb to mostly negative on Steam, and then completely turned it around. It's now sitting at very positive with over 1,500 reviews. IGN gave it 9 out of 10, and the critics are calling it one of the most atmospheric horror games in years. So what's the truth about Reanimal, and should you actually spend your money on it? Let's get into it. Reanimal is a horror adventure game from Tarsier Studios, the Swedish team behind Little Nightmares 1 and 2. If you're wondering why Tarsier didn't make Little Nightmares 3, well, they were acquired by Embracer Group back in 2019, which is the parent company of THQ Nordic, but the Little Nightmares IP is actually owned by Bandai Namco. So when it came time for the third game, Bandai Namco bought in Supermassive Games instead. Tarsier, meanwhile, they went quiet for years and built Reanimal as their own original project under THQ Nordic. The game launched on February the 13th, 2026. That was Friday the 13th because, of course it did. It released on PS5, Xbox Series XS, Nintendo Switch 2 and PC. It's priced at $39.99 in the US and £34.99 in the UK. The setup is this: you play as a brother and sister, a boy wearing a sack mask with a noose around his neck, and a girl in a white nightgown and a rabbit mask. They wake up near a mysterious island, and their 3 friends have gone missing. Your job is to take your boat to different locations around the island, venture into increasingly horrifying areas, rescue each friend and try to escape. It's fully playable solo with an AI companion, in local couch co-op or online co-op. There's also a friend pass system, which we'll touch more on that in a bit. The whole thing runs on Unreal Engine 5 and it shows. It's a 9-chapter game that takes roughly 5 to 6 hours to complete, or 8 to 10 if you go after every collectible. Let me start with what Reanimal absolutely nails, because there's a lot to praise here. First, the atmosphere. This might be one of the most visually striking horror games I played in years. Tarsier have always been brilliant at creating worlds that feel wrong in a way you can't quite put your finger on, and Reanimal takes that to another level. The lighting is actually exceptional. Shadows stretch in unnatural ways, fog rolls through environments with real weight, and the colour palette of blues, grey and browns creates this relentless sense of dread. And then the game hits you with moments of unexpected beauty, like a massive field of bright orange flowers stretching through the horizon, and the contrast is so striking it catches you completely off guard. Pelican called it the most beautiful horror game in years, and honestly, that's not an exaggeration. Second, the creature design. This has always been Tarsier's calling card, and Reanimal might be their best work yet. The main antagonist you encounter early on is called the Sniffer, this tall, lanky figure with contortionist movement and a fedora. Every creature in this game feels like it belongs in a fever dream, grotesque but creative. This isn't cheap jump scare horror, this is the kind of unsettling imagery that stays with you after you turn the game off. The Guardian's review headline literally reads, "You will never turn your back on a Pelican again as long as you live," and I won't spoil why. Third, the structure. Unlike Little Nightmares, which was more linear, Reanimal gives you a boat as a hub and lets you travel to different spots around the island. Each area is essentially its own self-contained horror level with a unique theme. This breaks up the pacing really well. There's something actually satisfying about completing a harrowing rescue, escaping back to your boat and seeing the island stretching out knowing there's more ahead. And fourth, that ending. Without spoiling anything, the final hour of Reanimal is absolute peak. The last chapter flips the dynamic and puts you in a position where you're both the hunter and the hunted, and it ties together the mysterious imagery you've been seeing throughout the game. Multiple reviewers, even the ones who were mixed on the overall experience, specifically called out the ending as exceptional. Games Radar described the whole game as a feast of twisted weirdness conjuring up unpleasant imagery and dark world building, and IGN went even further and gave it 9 out of 10, calling it an editor's choice. Now here's where I have to be honest with you, because Reanimal is not a perfect game, and depending on what you're looking for, some of these issues could be deal breakers. The biggest problem is the tension, or rather the lack of it. For a horror game, Reanimal doesn't always feel dangerous. When enemies show up, the solution is often the same: hide, wait a few seconds, and move on. The Sniffer, as incredible as he looks, has some questionable AI patterns. Several reviewers noted that stealth encounters often boil down to waiting rather than thinking. You're not sneaking past enemies while accomplishing something. You're just sitting still until they leave. GameSpot review put it well. They said it felt like seeing scares without feeling scared. The encounters can feel scripted rather than reactive, and that kinda takes the edge off. The puzzles are also surprisingly thin. Little Nightmares had clever environmental puzzles that made you feel smart for figuring them out. Reanimal has far fewer, and most are straightforward. The game introduces basic combat. You can swing at enemies and throw weapons at bosses, but even that feels more like busy work than actual gameplay system. And then there's the exploration issue. Reanimal gives you much bigger environments than Little Nightmares ever did. Wider outdoor areas, deeper rooms, longer corridors. But it doesn't always fill those spaces with enough to discover. There are collectibles, masks, concept art, prayer statues and coffins. Finding all 5 coffins unlocks a secret ending, which is a nice touch, but the game doesn't always signal clearly what's the main path and what's optional. So you can end up opening random doors and checking empty rooms for nothing. After the halfway point, the payoff for exploring doesn't always justify the effort. The story is also quite vague for most of the runtime. It's told through environmental clues and repeated imagery rather than direct narrative, very much the Tarsier style. If you love the ambiguity of Little Nightmares, you'll feel right at home. But if you want clear answers about what's happening on this island, you might be frustrated until the ending ties things together. Let's talk about the co-op and the launch drama. Reanimal was designed from the ground up as a co-op experience. You can play it solo with an AI partner, but the game clearly shines when you're playing with another person, local couch co-op or online. There's a friend pass system, which means only one of you needs to own the game. Your co-op partner downloads a free companion app, joins your session, and you play the entire thing together. It's a brilliant feature. But now, if you saw any headlines around launch day, you might have heard that Reanimal got review bombed on Steam. That did happen, briefly. When the game launched on February the 13th, the Friend Pass wasn't available on PC or Xbox at launch, even though it was ready on PS5 and Switch too. PC players were frustrated, and the Steam reviews dropped to mostly negative within hours. But here's the important part. THQ Nordic responded quickly. The Friend Pass was patched in on PC within about a day, and since then, the reviews have completely turned around. As I'm recording this, Reanimal sits at very positive on Steam with an 86% positive across 1,500 reviews. So if those early headlines put you off, that issue is fully resolved, and the Friend Pass works on all platforms now. As for length, Reanimal takes about 5 to 6 hours for a standard playthrough across its 9 chapters, but if you're going after every mask, coffin and the secret ending, you're looking at about 8 to 10 hours. So for £39.99 or $40, whether that's good value is a personal call. For context, Little Nightmares 1 was about 3.5 hours and Little Nightmares 2 was about 5 to 6, so Reanimal is the longest game Tarsier had made. But I understand if that price point for 6 hours feels steep to some of you. So who should actually buy Reanimal? If you love Little Nightmares 1 and 2 and you've been waiting to see what Tarsier does next, yeah, play this game. It's their most ambitious and most visually stunning project. The atmosphere is actually world class, and the ending alone makes the journey worthwhile. Critics are split on the gameplay. Some found it elegant in its simplicity, others found it too thin, but almost everyone agrees the art direction and the world design are outstanding. If you have a friend or partner to play co-op with, the experience is significantly better. Having someone with you through the environments adds a layer to the game that solo play with the AI can't replicate. But if you need strong gameplay mechanics, an actual challenge, and a clear story to stay engaged, Reanimal might frustrate you. The gameplay is simple, the puzzles are few, and for a horror game, it's more unsettling than outright terrifying. If you're expecting the next Resident Evil or Silent Hill in terms of survival horror depth, this isn't it. It's closer to an interactive dark fairy tale, something you experience more than you play, and if you're on a budget, I'd say wait for a sale. At full price for 6 hours with limited replay value beyond collectible hunting and the secret ending, it's a tougher ask. So should you play Reanimal? Reanimal is a game that's better to look at than it is to play, and I mean that as both a compliment and a criticism. The atmosphere, the creature design, and the visual storytelling are some of the best in the horror genre right now. Tarsier has proven they don't need the Little Nightmares name to create something memorable, but the gameplay underneath all that beauty is too simple for some. The tension doesn't always deliver, and the larger environments needed more to do in them. The critic reception had been strong, scoring it in the 70s to mid 80s on Metacritic depending on platform, with IGN giving it 9 out of 10, and the Steam community has come around after the rocky launch day, now seeing that very positive. I'm giving Reanimal a 7 out of 10, a beautifully haunting experience that doesn't fully deliver on its horror gameplay promise, but one that fans of Tarsier's style and atmospheric horror will find a lot to love in. If you do pick it up, play it in co-op, play it in the dark, and whatever you do, don't trust the Pelicans. If this review helped you decide, drop a like, it actually helps the channel more than you think. If you're into horror gaming, I cover the biggest releases, hidden gems, and lists every single week, so hit subscribe if you don't want to miss anything. I've got a video right here on the biggest upcoming horror games still to come in 2026. Resident Evil Requiem launches in less than 2 weeks, and Fatal Frame 2 remake drops in March, and there's a lot more. If Reanimal wasn't quite your thing, something on that list will be. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.